Well, from the time that I was a young boy, in the atmosphere of my family, my father was a pharmacist that served a working class neighborhood in the Brooklyn borough of New York City. And this was in the 1940s. And when I was a child, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I watched my parents, whose main goal was to serve the community. It was a sort of a mom and shop pharmacy in which less emphasis on any making money and more emphasis on serving the community. This was followed by my education by Jesuit priests in high school and ultimately in college. And the theme of the Jesuit motto is service for others. And since I liked science very much, I thought the best way to combine my aptitude and my love of science with my love of trying to serve and take care of individual people. And that drove me into the field of medicine. My mother and father, and now over the last 40 plus years, my wife, have really left a mark of closeness and love in an atmosphere of caring for people. Another person who I consider a mentor was someone who recruited me from my residency training program as a young physician in training, who recruited me to the NIH to learn how to become a scientist. And his name was Dr. Sheldon Wolf. And he had a great, important, positive impact on me. You know, research is very important. And the reason I feel, even though I'm fundamentally a physician whose primary interest is caring for patient, what I learned early on, that if you do research and make a discovery or develop a clinical protocol that has an amplifying effect, the results of which could help a number of people in an amplifying effect more than what you could do with any individual patient. So it allowed you, in your experience as a clinical researcher, to develop new knowledge or new protocols that could impact in a positive way a much larger number of people. You know, it is, I think, developing relationships and friendships in your life is part of the broader support structure that you have, that you could essentially have people who are comfortable enough with you to give you advice and maybe pointing out things that you could do better. My travels to sub-Saharan Africa, seeing the impact of certain diseases that are not as impactful in the developed world, like the European Union or the United States or Canada. And it gave me a greater appreciation for the needs and the demands of global health. You know, I think if used properly, artificial intelligence can be value added to what we do in medicine and science. But obviously, it is such a powerful tool. And with all powerful tools, there needs to be some guardrails. Well, I have 3 daughters who I love very much and I'm very proud of. That is a very, very important part of my life, because the joy that I get from my children is, beyond description, actually. During the time that they were children, unfortunately, I was in the middle of the HIV/AIDS outbreak, both in the United States and globally. And I did not spend, out of necessity, as much time as I would have liked. I do like to read. I love exercise. So I have been a marathon runner, a runner of 10-kilometer races, and I try to stay in good physical shape. I think there are many challenges of the future. I'm talking only in the arena of science and health because that's the area that I have been involved with for all of my professional life. And I think the challenges and the opportunities in science are extraordinary. And I think the challenges in the future will be the opportunities of being able to give better health with equity throughout the world. I think it's important to make sure that the scientific advances that we made are equitably accessible to people throughout the world, including in the lower and middle income countries. The most important thing for me professionally is to continue to do whatever I can, whatever energy I have, to try and contribute to protecting and preserving the health of the American public. And since the United States has traditionally been a leader, I've gone through some very stressful times in my professional career, most recently with the divisiveness that's going on here in the United States. And it's very important to have a loving family to support you. That is very important to me. Well, I stepped down from the directorship of the NIH about 2 years ago, but when I was director, my laboratory was an international laboratory. We have had people from several European countries, and we also, interestingly, had some people from Eastern countries like Japan and China. So my laboratory was a very integrated laboratories of people of all nationalities, many of whom went back to their respective countries and became leaders in their country in health and research. First of all, it's a great honor to have been elected to the Academy, but it also represents for me the embodiment of excellence in science and medicine that is seen in countries outside of my own country. I think international involvement, such as with the Academy in Belgium, as well as with the Royal Academy in London, has been very, very important for me because it just adds to the international flavor of science, research, and medicine. I have been fortunate enough to be an advisor to 7 presidents of the United States. And the one thing that has allowed me to be successful, even though the presidents have widely different ideologies, is to stay out of politics and stick with the science. So I have gone by the rule, always advise people and not be afraid to tell them something that might be an inconvenient truth that they may not like to hear. And I've done that with all 7 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan and winding up when I was the chief medical advisor to President Joe Biden. Am I a big eater?
Yes.
Well, no, I don't eat a lot. I'm kind of a thin, small person. I always have been. I like good food, but I don't eat a lot. I tend to monitor myself so that I could stay in good shape.